Welcome to the Biblical Perspectives for Leadership podcast, where timeless biblical truths meet modern leadership. We are thrilled to have you join us on this journey of exploring how biblical principles can guide us in leading with wisdom, integrity, and purpose. Whether you're leading in the church, your workplace, or your community, this podcast is designed to inspire, challenge, and equip you for the road ahead. Let's dive into today's conversation and discover how Scripture shapes the way we lead.
Welcome back to Biblical Perspectives for Leadership. Sometimes, the most powerful leadership lessons come from some pretty unexpected places.
Right.
Yeah. Today we're going to dive deep into the book of Numbers,
Okay.
chapters 13 and 14.
Right.
And unpack this story of the spies and what it reveals about faith, courage,
Yes.
and effective leadership.
That's a great choice. The story's packed with insights. They're as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago.
Absolutely. So to set the scene, the Israelites are on the verge of entering Canaan,
Right.
the land promised to them by God.
Yes.
It's described in Numbers 13, verse 27, as a land flowing with milk and honey,
Yes.
which kind of paints this a pretty vivid picture of abundance, right? Prosperity.
Absolutely. I mean, the stakes are high.
Yeah.
Moses sends 12 spies, one representing each of the 12 tribes of Israel.
Wow.
Just imagine that.
Yeah.
The weight of that responsibility. Being chosen to represent your entire tribe on such a crucial mission.
I bet it felt like an incredible honor,
I would think so.
Like, wow, I was chosen.
Yeah.
It makes me think about leadership positions that we hold today,
Yeah.
whether it's at work or in our communities or even within our families. There's often this sense of responsibility that comes with those roles.
Right.
A feeling that people are looking to us for guidance, for direction.
It's interesting you brought that up because it connects to the idea of excellent standing.
Okay.
That's described in 1 Timothy 3, verse 13.
Okay.
That verse talks about deacons earning an excellent standing.
Right.
Not to be exalted, but to be seen as models, examples for others to follow.
Yeah.
And that's a key aspect of leadership, isn't it? Setting an example, living in a way that inspires and motivates others.
Absolutely. So these 12 spies, they head into Canaan,
Right.
spend 40 days exploring the land.
Mm-hmm.
And when they return, their reports, they're wildly different.
Very different.
Yeah. 10 of the spies, they come back with these tales of danger. They talk about walled cities, strong inhabitants.
Uh-huh.
And in Numbers 13, verse 33, they even mention seeing giants, the sons of Anak.
Oh, wow.
They said they felt like grasshoppers compared to these giants.
It's amazing, how fear can just distort our perception.
Yeah.
They saw the same land as the other two spies, Caleb and Joshua, but their fear, it magnified the challenges and it minimized all the possibilities.
Right. And Caleb and Joshua, they come back with a completely different perspective.
Right.
In Numbers 13, verse 30, they say they are well able to overcome any obstacles. They saw the same giants, the same challenges, but their faith fueled their courage
Yes.
and their determination.
Absolutely.
And that's where the story takes this dramatic turn.
It does.
The Israelites, instead of being inspired by Caleb and Joshua's faith, allow fear to take hold.
Right.
They start complaining.
Oh, yeah.
They question Moses and Aaron's leadership. They even wish they had died back in Egypt.
Yeah.
We see this in Numbers 14, verse 2.
Wow. It's a really powerful example of how quickly fear can spread and how it can just paralyze even the most capable people.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the times in our own lives where we face difficult decisions right now.
Yeah.
Have we ever let fear kind of cloud our judgment
Yeah.
to prevent us from taking a risk or pursuing a dream?
Absolutely. It's a human response for sure, but I think the key is to recognize that fear is often based on perception,
Right.
not reality.
Yeah.
And just like Caleb and Joshua, we can choose to focus on a different narrative, a narrative of faith, of courage, and of possibility.
That's right. Like when you're facing some challenge at work, a new project seems really daunting, or a tough conversation
Yeah.
that you need to have.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in the what ifs and focus on all the things that could go wrong.
Oh, yeah. I've been there. It's like that feeling of being stuck. Like you're frozen in place by fear and uncertainty.
Exactly. But this story of the spies, it reminds us we have a choice. We can choose to let fear control us, Or we can choose to respond with faith and courage, just like Caleb and Joshua.
Right.
They didn't deny the challenges. They acknowledged the walled cities, the strong inhabitants, the giants.
Right.
But they chose to focus on God's promise, on his power, and their own ability to overcome with his help.
Yeah. That takes a lot of faith.
Yeah,
It's one thing to believe when everything's going well,
sure.
but it's a whole other level of faith to trust in the midst of uncertainty and adversity.
And that's what makes their leadership so inspiring. They understood that faith isn't about ignoring reality.
Right.
It's about choosing to believe in a different outcome, even when the odds seem stacked against you.
It's like they had this unwavering belief that God would be with them, that he would equip them
Yeah.
to overcome any obstacle. And that kind of faith, that's contagious. It can inspire and motivate others to step up and face their own challenges.
Think about it this way. The Israelites had just witnessed these incredible miracles. God had parted the Red Sea.
Right.
He had provided food and water in the wilderness.
Right.
And yet, they still doubted.
It's hard to believe.
It really is. It makes you wonder, what would it take for us to fully trust, to let go of our fears and embrace the promises God has given us?
That's a powerful question. You know, it makes me think about what Andy Cook said in his sermon about the high cost of leadership.
Okay.
You know, he emphasized that a place of leadership is a place of honor
Right.
and a place of great responsibility.
Yes. And he made a really interesting point in that sermon. He said effective leaders, they don't let problems stop the promise.
Oh, interesting.
They don't get bogged down in the challenges and lose sight of the bigger picture,
Right.
ultimate goal.
It's like they have this ability to see beyond the immediate circumstances,
Yes.
keep their eyes fixed on the horizon,
Yes.
even when the storm's raging around them.
It reminds me of Hebrews 11, verses 23 through 29, where the writer describes Moses as a man of faith, someone who chose to believe God even when things looked really bleak. It's a powerful testament to the importance of having that unwavering belief, that trust in something bigger than yourself.
And that kind of faith is what enables leaders to make bold decisions, to take risks, to persevere even when others are giving up,
Yeah.
because they understand that the problems are temporary, but the promise is eternal.
It's like they have this inner compass that keeps them pointed in the right direction, even when the external world is full of chaos and confusion.
Yeah. So how can we cultivate that kind of faith, that unwavering belief in God's promises, even when we're facing our own giants?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it starts with recognizing that faith is a journey, not a destination. There will be times when we doubt, when we struggle, when we feel like giving up. But it's in those moments that we need to lean into our relationship with God, to remind ourselves of his faithfulness, and to trust that he's working everything together for our good.
Yeah. It's like building a muscle. Right. The more we exercise our faith, the stronger it becomes.
Yes.
The more we see God's faithfulness in our lives, the easier it becomes to trust him in the future.
Exactly. And it's also about surrounding ourselves with people who will encourage us,
Right.
who will remind us of God's promises, who will help us to see the possibilities even when we're feeling overwhelmed by the challenges.
It's like having a team of Calebs and Joshuas in our lives.
Right.
People who speak truth and encouragement into our hearts, even when we're tempted to give in to fear and doubt.
And remember, the story of the spies, it isn't just about faith. It's also about courage. It takes courage to stand up for what you believe in, to go against the crowd, to speak truth, even when it's unpopular.
Especially when everyone else is focused on the negative. It takes a lot of inner strength to hold on to hope when everyone around you is succumbing to fear.
And that's what sets great leaders apart. They have the courage to follow their convictions even when it's difficult, even when it means facing opposition or criticism.
Think about Moses. He stood up to Pharaoh,
Yes.
led the Israelites out of Egypt.
Right.
He faced constant complaining and rebellion, but he never wavered in his commitment to God and to the mission he'd been given.
And that's what makes the story of the spies so relevant to us today. We all face challenges that require courage, whether it's standing up for what's right, speaking truth to power, or simply making a difficult decision that goes against the grain.
Yeah, it's about choosing to do the right thing, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it means standing alone.
That's true courage.
That's true courage.
And it's a quality we can all cultivate. It starts with small acts of bravery, speaking up when we see something wrong, setting boundaries when needed, making choices that align with our values.
It's like building a foundation of courage brick by brick until we're able to face even the biggest challenges with confidence and resilience.
And you know what? Sometimes courage looks like asking for help.
Okay.
It's recognizing that we don't have to go it alone, that we can lean on others for support and encouragement.
That's a great point. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It's a sign of strength and wisdom. And sometimes the most courageous thing we can do is admit that we need help and reach out to others for guidance and support.
It's like remembering that we're part of a team, that we don't have to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. We can share the burden, encourage one another, and celebrate victories together.
And that brings us back to this idea of leadership. Effective leadership, it isn't about being a lone wolf. It's about building relationships,
Yes.
fostering trust, and empowering others to step up and contribute their unique gifts and talents.
And that's where the story of the spies takes another interesting turn. God's angered by the Israelites' lack of faith.
Right.
And in Numbers 14, verse 11, he actually threatens to destroy the entire nation.
Wow. Talk about high stakes.
I know, right?
It's like all their complaining and doubt, it reached a tipping point that pushed God to the limit.
Yeah.
And in that moment, it seems like all hope is lost.
But then Moses steps in and plays this crucial role as an intercessor. In Numbers 14, verses 13 through 19, he pleads with God, appealing to his mercy, reminding him of the promise he made to the Israelites.
It's like he's standing in the gap between God's wrath and the people's rebellion.
Yeah.
He's putting himself on the line, risking his own standing with God
Yeah.
to advocate for the people that he leads.
And that's what makes Moses such a powerful example of leadership. He's not just giving orders
Right.
or delegating tasks.
Right.
He's actively intervening on behalf of his people.
Yeah.
Even when they've messed up.
Yeah.
He's demonstrating true care and concern for their well-being, even when they don't deserve it.
It's a beautiful picture of grace and compassion.
It is.
It reminds us that effective leadership, it often involves advocating for those we lead, even when they're not at their best.
It's about seeing their potential,
Yeah.
believing in them, even when they don't believe in themselves, and fighting for them, even when they're pushing you away.
And, it's not just about advocating for others.
Right.
It's also about being willing to intercede for ourselves.
Yes.
We all have moments where we need to stand before God, confess our shortcomings, and ask for his mercy and grace.
It's about recognizing that we're not perfect,
Right.
that we make mistakes, and that we need God's forgiveness and guidance to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And it's in those moments of humility when we surrender our pride and our ego that we experience the fullness of God's grace and power.
It's like we're saying, God, I can't do this on my own. I need your help. And in that surrender, we find true freedom and strength.
So God listens to Moses' plea. He relents. But he decrees that this generation of Israelites will wander in the wilderness for 40 years.
Wow.
Each year representing a day they spent scouting Canaan.
40 years.
This is spelled out in Numbers 14, verse 34.
It's a consequence, for sure, but it's also an act of grace. God's giving them time to learn, to grow in their faith, to prepare the next generation for the challenges ahead.
Yeah. So he's saying, okay, you messed up, but I'm not giving up on you.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you another chance.
Yeah.
But you need to do some work on yourselves first.
And isn't that just like God? He's always willing to give us second chances,
Yeah.
to redeem our mistakes, to help us grow and become more like him.
It's a reminder that even when we fail, even when we make bad choices, God's grace is always available to us.
And that brings us to the fates of the spies themselves.
Right.
The 10 who spread fear among the Israelites.
Yeah.
They die from a plague.
Wow.
As described in Numbers 14, verse 37. But Caleb and Joshua, the voices of faith and courage, they're spared
Right.
and will eventually lead the next generation into the promised land.
It's like this stark contrast between the paths of fear and faith,
Yes.
the consequences of choosing fear, of giving into doubt and negativity, they can be severe.
Yeah.
But the rewards of choosing faith, of holding on to hope and trusting in God's promises, they're immeasurable.
And that's a powerful lesson for us as leaders. The choices we make, they have a ripple effect. They not only impact our own lives, but they also influence the people that we lead
Right.
and the future generations that follow.
It's like we're leaving a legacy, a footprint in the sands of time, And we have the power to choose what kind of legacy we want to leave behind.
Do you want to be remembered for our fear and negativity or for our faith and courage?
That's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that leadership isn't just about achieving goals.
Right.
It's about shaping hearts and minds,
It's absolutely.
inspiring others to become the best versions of themselves.
And it all starts with the choices that we make, day in and day out.
Right.
Do we choose faith over fear, hope over despair, love over hate?
Yeah.
The choices we make, they matter. They shape our destiny, and they have the power to change the world.
And sometimes the greatest acts of leadership, they happen not in the boardroom or on the battlefield, but in those quiet moments
Yeah.
when we choose to trust God, to love others, and to live with integrity and courage.
And, I think the story of the spies is a powerful reminder that we're not alone in this journey. We have a God who's with us every step of the way, guiding us, strengthening us, and empowering us to lead with faith, courage, and compassion.
And we have each other, a community of believers who can encourage us, support us, and hold us accountable as we strive to become the leaders God has called us to be.
So let's take a moment to reflect on the lessons that we've learned from this incredible story. Let's ask God to show us how we can apply these principles to our own lives, to our leadership roles, and to our relationships with others.
Yeah. Let's be the kind of leaders who inspire others to choose faith over fear, to embrace challenges with courage, and to make a difference in the world for the glory of God.
And remember, the journey of leadership, it's a marathon, not a sprint. There will be ups and downs, victories and setbacks, but as long as we keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, we can be confident that he will lead us to the promised land.
Welcome back to Biblical Perspectives for Leadership. It's amazing, how much we can learn from this story in Numbers, even, thousands of years after it was written. And it's got me thinking about these leadership principles, how they apply not just to big life-altering decisions, but also, those everyday situations we all face.
That's a great point. It's easy to think these epic biblical narratives are only relevant to leading armies or nations.
Right.
But really, the principles that they illustrate are just as applicable to leading a team at work or making decisions within our family or even navigating personal challenges.
Absolutely. So let's zoom in a bit.
Okay.
What are some specific takeaways from the story of the spies that we can apply to our everyday lives?
Well, one thing that really stands out to me is the importance of, information gathering. Moses, he sent the spies to gather intel, to assess the situation, before making a decision. And that's something we should all do as leaders, right?
Yeah.
Whether we're leading a team at work or making a major purchase or even just choosing a restaurant for dinner, right?
Gather information.
It sounds so basic.
It is.
But I think we rush into things without taking the time to gather all the necessary information. We let emotions or assumptions cloud our judgment.
Absolutely. And the story of the skies, it highlights another crucial aspect of decision-making,
Okay.
how we process the information that we gather.
Okay.
So the 10 spies focused on the negatives, the giants, the walled cities, and they let fear dominate their perspective.
Right.
But Caleb and Joshua, they saw those same things, yet they chose to focus on the possibilities. They focused on God's promise.
So it's not just about gathering information,
Right.
but about filtering it, about not letting fear or negativity distort our perspective.
That's right. It's about having a discerning mind, asking critical questions, seeking wise counsel from trusted sources, recognizing that not all information is created equal and that we need to be careful not to let our emotions or biases influence our interpretation of the facts.
Makes me think about those times I've gotten caught up in gossip or rumors.
And letting negativity shape my view of a person or situation.
Right.
I need to remember to step back, gather more information, and try to see things from, a more balanced perspective.
And that leads to another crucial takeaway, the power of perspective. How we frame a situation, how we choose to see it can make all the difference. Do we see obstacles as insurmountable roadblocks, or do we see them as challenges to overcome? Do we view setbacks as failures or as opportunities for learning and growth?
It's like that saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
Our perspective shapes our reality.
Precisely. And that's where faith comes into play. It's not about ignoring reality or pretending that challenges don't exist. It's about choosing to believe that with God's help, with the right mindset and actions, we can overcome any obstacle.
And that ties into another point we've been discussing, the importance of vision. Caleb and Joshua, they had this clear vision of the promised land, a picture of abundance and prosperity that fueled their determination.
Yeah.
And we need that vision too. in our own lives, right? A clear sense of where we're going, what we're striving for, why it matters. Because that vision, it'll guide our decisions. It'll inspire our actions. And it'll keep us going when things get tough.
That's right. And it's not enough to just simply have that vision. We need to be able to articulate it to others,
Right.
to inspire them to buy into it. Think about how Caleb and Joshua rallied the people. They spoke with conviction, with passion.
Yeah.
They didn't just present this dry report. They painted a picture, evoked emotion. They made the vision come alive.
They were storytellers in a way. And that's such a powerful tool for leaders.
Yes.
For all of us, really. Stories, they have a way of connecting with people on a deeper level,
Yeah.
conveying meaning and inspiring action.
Think about how Jesus taught through parables. Those stories, they resonated for centuries because they tap into our emotions, engage our imaginations, and make the message more memorable and impactful.
It reminds me of Andy Cook's sermon where he talked about how effective leaders, they don't just communicate information, they cast vision.
Yeah.
They help people see the possibilities, imagine a better future, and then inspire them to work together to make that vision a reality.
And that brings us back to this idea of everyday leadership. It's not about, grand gestures or sweeping pronouncements. It's about the small, consistent choices that we make each day that reflect our values, our beliefs, and the vision that we hold for ourselves and the world around us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this thought: leadership. Whether it's on a grand scale or in our everyday lives, it's about making choices.
Yes.
Choices about what information we prioritize, how we frame challenges, what vision we embrace, and how we communicate that vision to others.
And those choices, they matter. They shape our lives, they shape our communities, and they shape the world around us. So let's choose wisely.
Yeah.
Let's choose faith over fear, hope over despair, and action over apathy. Let's be the kind of leaders who inspire others to reach for their full potential, to build a better future, one choice, one conversation, one act of courage at a time.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time on Biblical Perspectives for Leadership.
Thank you for joining us on the Biblical Perspectives for Leadership podcast. I hope today's insights have encouraged and equipped you to lead with faith, wisdom, and purpose. Remember, the greatest leader of all time taught us that true leadership is about serving others. If you enjoyed this episode and podcast, be sure to subscribe, share it with others, and leave a review. It helps us reach more people with these transformative truths. Until next time, keep leading with grace and walking in purpose.